sponsored by the Institute of Museum and Library Services.
Okay, thank you guys all for coming and welcome to the National Book Festival. I'm Karen Yang, a high schooler in New Jersey, and we're here today representing the Library of Congress's teenage audience.
I'm Etty, a rising senior from Houston, Texas, and our guests today are Yusuf Salam and Evie Savoy, authors of Punching the Air.
So could you guys please introduce yourselves and tell us about your book, Punching the Air?
You got it, Yusuf? All right, I'll begin, and then the man of the hour, I believe, can finish us off. I am Evie Savoy, and I am a author of books for young readers and young readers from age 5 to infinity. But we call it picture books, middle grade, and young adult novels. And I am also a mom of 3 teens. I've been writing for a long time, but I've been published for about 5 or 6 years. And Punching the Air is my 5th book. And it's my first collaboration with a friend that I met all the way back in college. And I'm honored to have written this book with him. And it's been an incredible journey. And we're still talking about it. And we will continue to talk about it. And Yusuf will continue to talk about it until justice is served all over the country and all over the world. That's our hope.
Absolutely. And my name is Yusuf Salam. I am also the co-author of Punching the Air. You know, it's definitely a labor of love to be able to tell a story like this, even though it's a fictional story. But, you know, from the perspective of what's been happening in the world, we realize that this could be any child or any person in any town, you would say. You know, what better person to tell this story as well? But then, you know, but me being a part of that, because of course I was run over by the spike wheels of justice about 32 years now, 32 plus years ago, and you know, it's my desire in life to make sure that we magnify the voice of the voiceless, the people who have been pushed to the margins of life, and really echo their stories. And Punching the Air is that, so to speak, that water, that seed that we've been using, the water that we've been using to water the seeds of greatness inside every one of us, so that we can push forward and make sure that we finally have a system where true justice, true equality, true freedom prevails.
I really liked your comparison to watering the seed, and I was curious what a typical writing session looked like. Was it more structured and outlined, or composed of spontaneous bursts of creativity, or more a combination of both?
So our creative process was very unique in the sense that I am helping Yusuf write a story that I didn't live, that I did not live through. And I watched his story on a TV screen when I was little. And then I watched it again in the form of a fictional series through Netflix. This was after we started writing the book. So I don't know how many collaborations work like that, but I had to listen to everything that Yusuf told me about his experience. And it wasn't a matter of him telling me what should happen next in the story. It was Yusuf reflecting back on how he felt, what happened in a bigger sense, why it happened, and why we need to write this book. He would say things like the full, my DNA is an acronym. So he knows all 3 words that DNA stands for. So of course I had to write a poem called DNA and connect it to fathers and sons, because he told me about his father and the relationship between him and his mother and his father and the people in his family. So it was just a lot of conversation. What was it like for you, Yusuf?
I want to say that it was quite liberating, to see it from the inside out is one thing, and then to participate and be able to tell a story that's full and robust. I kind of would describe us as having this kind of rapper and DJ kind of thing, where I would be the one that would tell the story, and you would be the one that the music of the story would be laid out on, and you would craft the music and make sure that everything was connected and smooth. And, it was a really fun process. And it was a powerful process as well, right? Because one of the things that I've been experiencing is, how do you tell this story that has happened so long ago? And how do you use story to make sure that you help other people who may be going through similar kinds of situations grow through them, as opposed to just go through them? And so I want to say that it was a breath of fresh air. It was a necessary and liberating process. It was a fun process. Every time we may have finished a session, it may have taken me some time to get back to the balance of where life was at my particular point in my life. Because sometimes when you go back through those experiences, you have to relive them in a way that could be very traumatic. And so you kind of, because we were talking about it, writing it out, figuring out how it was going to all go, I thought that it was a really powerful, magnificent process to be able to get there, go through it, and then grow through it all over again in a way now as an adult, where you look back and you say, wow, I really went through that, Even though it's not my story per se, but it is kind of folded into my story. And so it was a therapeutic process as well.
Wow, I really like that idea of just like telling the story as a form of therapy. And that's just such an interesting point. Yusuf, in various interviews, you've mentioned Nelson Mandela and Maya Angelou as sources of strength. Who has inspired your creativity or your creative process? And Evie, can you tell us about your own creative inspiration?
So, I think people who have inspired me have been folks that we all know about, who have been participants in the struggle, a struggle that they didn't want to be a part of, but that they were thrust into because of the color of their skin, being judged by that as opposed to the content of our character. And so, of course, it's been, folks like Nelson Mandela, Dr. Maya Angelou. It's been folks like John Lewis, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Anyone who has stood up and said, I want to participate in equality, in justice, and freedom has been my my inspiration. And it's been folks as well as Bob Marley, right? I listened to Bob Marley as a youngster, and even though I never got an opportunity to meet him, to listen to the words of Bob Marley talking about, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And all of the words that he used to craft and participate in this theater of life, the liberation of us as a people, his words still reverberate and are magnificent and magnifying in life now as we live, and play his works and play other people's works as well. So it's been all of that. It's been the kaleidoscope, I think, of real life experiences, the music of life, the tapestry of life, and what we imagine life to be. All of those have been my inspirations.
My inspiration comes from being an immigrant in America and not always fitting into the spaces that I occupy. Even at home, I never felt like I could fit in because I was getting American ideas from school and TV, and my mother had cultural values that did not fit into what I wanted to be as a child and a teen in America. And in school, I couldn't do what my other friends were doing. And because my mother and home life were very different from my friends' home life. So I always felt like I occupied this liminal space of being from here and not being from here, not being from there or anywhere. And the way that I made space for myself was to write stories and to read stories. I created characters that were trying to question the world and make sense of their surroundings. I'm still trying to do that even as a grown-up. I'm still tapping into my teen self because those were the most difficult years for me. And I think teenhood is when you can have a real breakthrough in identity, or you begin the process of shedding away those layers of who your parents want you to be, or society wants you to be. So for me, I'm always inspired by my own journey and other kids like me who don't quite fit in. And that includes Yusef as well. He has such a unique story, and I can relate on some level of just just being someone who has a story to tell, has an incredible story to tell. My story is not his story by far, but I am from Haiti, and people have said, and the media has said, that it is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. I have a story to tell about my country and what kids like me are going, not kids like I was when I was 16, what I went through. I want to share that with kids who are in their teens and tweens as well.
Evie, I really like the message of learning from your own journey. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of youth tuning in from the National Book Festival can learn from. And Yusef, it was really cool hearing you talk about, because I'm a fan of Bob Marley's music, so hearing your interpretation about his lyrics, I think I'd never looked that deep into it. So I'm definitely going to go back and listen and kind of look out for what you talked about. But moving on, Amal, throughout the book, he expresses the weight he feels by referring to objects. He refers to stones, bricks, buildings, cities, and then even mountains. And the heavier references are almost always made after the lighter ones. So I was wondering if you guys could talk about why this choice was made and how it aligns with the progression of events and Amal's own internal dilemmas.
I think because Yusef did not really share a lot about what he felt, I had to use metaphor based on the things that he didn't say. He said a lot, he shared a lot, but I had to fill in the gaps. And I wonder if Yusef found those metaphors accurate to the way that he was feeling.
Absolutely. It's interesting too, because it's one of those experiences as you tell this story, and then you get an opportunity to see it written out on paper. Everything fit very well. Everything was, for me, a breath of fresh air, to be able to kind of go into the space of being able to describe things in that way is important, because I think that also is the space that young people get the opportunity to begin to realize, even in telling story and being able to stand up and be counted. Quite often they're young people are dismissed a lot of times. They're dismissed as being young and not wise enough or not knowing enough. But then there's those of us who are the old souls, the people who they say have been here before, right? Who have had these experiences that feel not necessarily brand new, but they feel like it's part of the tapestry of life that has been already experienced and existing. I loved it. I loved the way that the objects were being described, and also realizing that there's life even in these objects that seem inanimate, right? When you go down to the molecular level of things, you realize that there's movement always happening, even in a stone, a brick, right? In the air, there's movement. There's always something going on. And being able to feel that is important.
I never expected that it would be something that was used as a filler, like a gap in what you knew about Yusef's emotions. So that was very interesting to hear about. And this is my interpretation of it. And I was kind of wondering if this was intentional or not, but was this meant to allude to the notion that social injustice can extend beyond psychological trauma and maybe have like physiological implications with the way he physically felt the weight?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The layers of expression can't be dismissed and have to be understood as part of the whole. And I say that because, sometimes things happen to you in this, I've experienced this, right? People say, oh, that happened so long ago. Why don't you just get over it? You never really get over things, right? You find ways to deal with them in different ways and in different times of life. And I think that's part of the process. Part of the process of being able to literally take what's being given you and making lemonade out of those lemons. You still have to make the lemonade, right? You still got to get up. You still have to always say to yourself, okay, let me face the day, right? And so it's always happening to you. And at some point, what happens, where the breakthrough happens, is when you realize that everything that happened to you actually happens for you. It's part of the process of life shaping you to becoming the survivor that you need to be in order to be a light in the world, to eschew the darkness around us.
Wow, I really like that idea of just like everything that happens to you isn't purely coincidence, but rather so intentional. And you really have to find resilience and really tap into that and overcome it, which is such a beautiful, beautiful message. Kind of just like pivoting back to kind of Amal's experience in the juvenile detention center. I noticed a lot of comparisons to his school and such, and I know that Punching the Air also aims to kind of address the school to prison pipeline. I wanted to kind of ask you guys how you incorporated and described the school to prison pipeline within Punching the Air, and how did you guys incorporate this idea when comparing the juvenile detention center and Amal's school?
Well, as you know, what happened to Yusef happened over 30 years ago. And while this is not Yusef's story, we wanted to update 16-year-old Yusef to a 2020 version of him. And back then, the term school to prison pipeline was not even a term. It was not even an idea. People were not making those connections. And now we are. And we wanted to really show what that looks like on the page and in the life of this boy. I taught in public schools for a little bit. My husband is a high school teacher. And sometimes you walk into high schools and the walls are gray and bare. It does feel kind of, it has like a disciplinary feel to it. In urban spaces in the city, I don't know if your schools have them or you know of schools that do have metal detectors. Can you imagine being 14, 15, 16 and every single morning having to be searched in that way? And it's as if you're walking into the school already being presumed to be a criminal. And I know they say that it's for your own protection. Even if you're not guilty of anything, you are suspicious of your own classmates. So all of this went into Amal making the connection between prison really feels like school. And you know where I got that idea from. Yusef said one day, you know what? It felt like I was going to school, but I just couldn't go home. Remember saying that, Yusef? And then I ran with that idea. I was like, oh, okay, because you're taking classes, your inmates, your fellow inmates become your friends. You do have recess. You are learning things. It's just that at the end of the day, you can't go home. You can't even go home for summer recess or holidays. Your family is coming to you.
I just want to chime in real quick because I was having a conversation with my mother recently, and she was telling me about the great Pan-Africanist Ilambe Brathwaite's son. And she said, do you remember when he came with me one day? Now, mind you, he might have been 10 years old or something like that, maybe under 10 years old at the time. And he's on the visit. And to Ibby's point, which is, I think, really important, he's on the visit. He came up to see me, and when the prison visit was over, he said, "Okay, Yusuf, come on, let's go home." And to have that shift happen where this young boy, this child, had to quickly get an understanding, perhaps not even at that particular point, that no, he's staying here. He's not able to come home with us, right? This is an unjust situation, and we have to deal with it. And we came to give him support and to love him and to appreciate him and to tell him that we are here with him, And so to have those kinds of shifts happen all the time, especially in the Black and brown communities, is unfortunate. And then you look at that and you realize that in our own life experience, right? We realize that life oftentimes isn't reflecting the life that we need to be pumped into ourselves on a daily basis so that we will know psychosocially that we matter, right? Because if we don't matter to ourselves, if we don't matter to society, then why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I find that so striking. I think like the whole idea of not being able to go home, not being able to go to a safe place where all your family is and where you really draw a lot of strength and resilience from and kind of like recharge your batteries, and somewhere you don't need to face the world and face so many battles constantly is really heartbreaking, and something that is so interesting and important to address as well. Just kind of wondering, because after reading the book, I've seen so many comparisons, and I just wanted to know, were there any implicit comparisons between the juvenile detention center and his school that readers might not have noticed the first read through?
There's one called I forgot what the poem is called, but the words are in a line. The words are, there's one word for each line, and it's supposed to represent a line. And this is how Amal walks in prison. And you had to line up too, right? In prison, Yusuf. So I know we remember that, in kindergarten, we had to line up. I remember having to do this on the line in kindergarten, and getting in trouble for stepping out of the line or turning around to talk to your friend. And I know it's a way to instill discipline and to move a large, group from one place to another. However, I think, Amal in the story is remembering, wow, I had to do this, and this was a form of control. I wonder if I personally, as the author, wonder if there are places where you can just tell young people to say, let's go to the next room, and they could walk quietly as little grown-ups on their own from one room to the other if we teach them. And it's a way that you learn to fall in line very early on. So it's an implicit comparison to how we are taught to respect authority and listen to authority, and metaphorically and figuratively and literally fall in line in everything that we do when we are citizens, when we are part of a group, when we are in school, when we are at work. And I want readers to examine that. Wow, we always line up as if we don't know how to get from point A to point B on our own.
Sorry, just the other piece about the comparisons too is that this is one of those books that you realize that when you read it the first time, it's almost like a really great movie, right? When you see it again, you realize, oh, snap, I didn't see that, or I didn't pick that part up. And so it's always a gift that keeps on giving, right? Read it again and read it again and read it again. And there will always be layers of understanding that you grow into because you kind of already are being introduced to it, right? And then reintroduced to it and then reintroduced to it again. And so that part is always exciting for me. Even as I reread, right? I reread Punch in the Air, and I'm just like, always like, wow, this is an amazing book.
We wrote it together.
I know.
And you lived it. You lived it, Yusuf. You lived it. Yeah. And there are kids who are continually to live it, who are living it now.
But for me, and this is the other part that sometimes when I talk to people about not necessarily punching the air, but my story, you know, to really be able to tell the story, oftentimes I have to tell it kind of like on a out of body experience, or in an out of body experience way, and to be able to revisit it, especially in Punching the Air, it's just always a pleasant surprise that it was that we got it right, right? We got it right, and it's something that's out there, and I'm amazingly proud of and happy for, and I'm just always smiling for it, right? Yeah, I mean, we participated in it, but I'm just like, man, we got this right. You know, this is so shining out there in the world.
It's being used in classrooms. More kids will be reading it every year. That's more important to me than awards, right? Or being on a bestseller list. I want it to be taught in classrooms. And Yusef is still here to tell his story. He has an autobiography behind him called A Better Not Bitter. So teachers and young people can read Punching the Air, which is fictional, can read his autobiography, can watch the Netflix series, can watch the Ken Burns documentary to get a full sense of what happened to these young men. And we never want anyone to forget, and I'm sure the Exonerated Five doesn't want anyone to forget, that they were 14, 15, and 16 when this happened. And these are boys your age now. So you have not experienced much at all, right? You know, I know you've had some fun, but there's so much more that you're going to, that's ahead of you. And at 14, 15, your life is cut short because of an arbitrary judicial system that doesn't always get it right. They get it right sometimes, but for many people, especially Black and brown boys and girls and gender nonconforming, they get it wrong. And when you get it wrong, it has dire consequences in the case of Yusef. But he's still here to tell it. And I was so happy to be able to connect with him to tell this story.
Yeah, I definitely came across a lot of lesson plans during my research, and it was very nice to see that this book is being taught about in classrooms and that Yusef's story won't be forgotten. And so on a ending note, it was really great speaking with you guys, Yusef and Nibi. Do you guys have any closing remarks to end with, or any parting messages to the young people that are tuning into the National Book Festival?
I think I would like for my closing remarks to be remembered with a poem that was given to me in a downtime in my life when I was in Clinton. And that poem was called The Blank Canvas. And so I want to just share that with you in the words, we are all born into this world like a blank canvas. And everyone that comes across our path takes their brush and leaves a mark on our surface. And this is how we grow and develop. But there comes a time that we have to pick up our own brush and to determine who and what we will be. Just another painting or a masterpiece? I want all of us to be able to be masterpieces in the world, to shine our lights brightly, to turn up our voices, and to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. You were wonderful. Thank you for those great questions.